Hey, hello, everybody. So I didn't want to start this presentation with slides. Instead, I wanted to start it with a story. Uh, it's like 1 year ago when Productboard got into a situation where one of our biggest customer reported issue with performance. And they complain that product board is unresponsive, that there is like a window showing that the page is like doing something, whether you want to wait or kill it, and that the product is not really usable. So we started thinking like how to deal with this issue, and it turns out that like we knew that their problem is specific to their instance. It's their specific set of data. It's their specific usage of product board, and there was no way how to reproduce the issue locally on our machine, and we didn't even have other customers complaining. So we basically had to really log in into their instance and try to figure it out somehow. So I'll show you what we did. Here I have product board. I have like intentionally uh, created a version which suffers of performance issues. And if you have a performance issue, you go to profiler here and you start recording, and then you do some interaction. And already I can feel that the app is slow. I clicked, nothing happened. So let's give it some time for the profiling to finish. When I was trying it out, it took a real long time. So, so maybe I'll kill it here because it should be enough. And now it would be great time for a joke, right? Yeah, I don't have any, sorry. Maybe I could have made it like less slow, the app. But I want to really, oh, it's happening. Something is happening now. Yeah. So this is what you get. You can see in the analyzer this red line. It's a long running task. And there you can zoom on the timeline. And you can see like what's taking so long. And if I hold the shift, for that I need my second hand. I can scroll down. But this is what you get, right? This kind of gibberish thing, you have no idea what's going on there. You can only see that it took 13 seconds. And if we scroll here, we can now find that, okay, hey, this is some recalculate thing, okay? That's maybe something ours. And if you take a look from where it's coming from, it's the main.js file. And if you click there, you see gibberish again. You have no idea what's going on, and you can only guess based on the code around, which is Minified. And for this thing, most of you probably already know that there is a source map tool. And the source map, you can load it here by right-clicking here at the source map. Here you are supposed to pass a URL. So I cheated a little bit, and I have the source map here. Just get rid of the screen. Ta-da. So I just like copied the local address on my drive, and here I can paste it this. So you see that points to the file on my machine, and when I press add, nothing happens. But that's not entirely true. When I go back to the performance and see the recalculate function again, now I can see that it's pointing to a TypeScript file. So the source map is loaded, and when I click there, I am in the code which we wrote as a company. So this is the intro. My name is Martin, alias Nutik. I welcome you to my talk about source maps, which is called From Minified to Magnified. And let's start with talking what is the source map. Source map is just a simple JSON which contains mapping from the generated code to the original code. And usually it's created during the build process when something what is called minification is happening. You could also hear term uglify. And what's basically happening during the build is that all your variables are being renamed to something shorter, like from your expressive, very readable name, it becomes variable A or B, K, P, and so on. And all of this happens for two reasons. One is to save the bundle size because it's shorter. And the second one is so nobody else can read the code. So it's harder to understand what's happening there. So that's where the source map is created. And there are tools which will visualize the source map for you. So I was interested in how does the minimal source map looks like. So I created a small project. I'll show you. It contains only two files, index.ts and this second TS, and you can see that there is really a simple code. Here in the index, there is like a console log and call of two functions, whatever, really simple thing. If we run the build process, we get the minified file, which looks like this. You can see that some of the variables, their name is retained, but some are renamed. And what even caught my attention is that this second here, where I declare result variable and I say it's 1 plus 5, this actually gets minified to 6 directly. So you can see that during the build process, your code is modified, right? And the source map helps you to map this modified code to the original one. So let's take a look. There is a tool called Source Map Visualizer. You upload there both files, the minified and the source map. And it's able to show you, I'll switch to the other file. It's able to show you how it maps together. So by color, there are like lines are represented by color. And when you hover over any line, you can see that it points to a certain part in the original code. And these parts which I'm hovering over, these are called segments. And they will play a certain role when I will describe source map more in depth. So you can see that suddenly I can hover over any part of the minified code, and it points me to the right location in the original source code. Right. So how does the source map JSON look like? So it has several properties. The first one is version. Today, the current version is version 3. It's here for a long time, since like 2011 or something like that. So it's really old and mature technology. Then the second key is sources. And this is really just a list of your files. So every file which got compiled and minified is listed here. The second key is sources content. And here you can notice that it has the same number of elements as the sources array. And it's basically the source code of these files. So you can see that this one, this second TS, that's here. Second TS, the source code is the first one, the first element. Next, there is names property. This usually contains names of variables and functions, which are minified. When I was playing with it, I never had it. I never saw there any values. But when I took a look on the source map of Productboard, I could see that there are many of them. And now the key point of the source map is this mappings key. And it's basically a huge string, and I will now show you what it consists of. So you can imagine that it's a really long key. There are semicolons to separate lines, and there are columns to separate those segments. So basically, as you can see, it consists of segments which are 1, 4, or 5 characters, and they encode which file, which line, and which column this particular segment represents in the original code. And interesting thing is that they build on top of each other. So you have to start with the first one, decode it, and then you get to the second one. And basically, the browser has to parse this whole file to understand the source map. And there is what is used here is a very smart algorithm, which is called VQL. And there are some details about the implementation. I will not go into it. But this part is a big deal because what it affects is the size of the source map. In the version 1, source maps were 10 times bigger than the generated code. That means, for example, when I joined Productboard, our bundle size was 10 megabytes. That means the source map for such bundle would be 100 megabytes. And that's huge, right? Because you have to store it somewhere. Maybe it has to be like built somewhere, even during the build process and so on. And as versions of source maps improved, they basically, with every version, they were able to cut the size in half. So now we are with version 3, and the size of the source map is 2.5 times the generated code. All right, so now you might be interested how to use source maps in your project. And you have two options. Either you add a specific comment, this kind of like source URL, source mapping URL, which points to the source file anywhere, and you add this to the end of the file. Every file you generate during the build process, you add it there, and you can use HTTP header pointing to the same URL. I would say that the first approach is more common. In our case, we are using Webpack to build our project. And in the configuration, we have the settings for source map DevTool plugin, where you can specify the public path and the file name, and it will generate the comment for you. So that's all you need to do. And one more cool thing about source maps is that they are language agnostic. So it might happen to you that you can see some source maps for CSS styles or anything else. But I would say that they are mostly used for compiled JavaScript. One more thing I want to mention is that having source maps opens new whole opportunities. For example, you can upload it to Sentry.io. And when there is an error logged in your application, it will show you in which part of the code base the error happened. And with this kind of information, you can even identify, based on code owners, what team it should assign to this error, right? So you get this kind of automatic reporting, which automatically assigns the owner of the error and who should fix it. Very powerful. Right, there is one important thing I want you to remember, and it's not the fact that ChatGPT cannot generate texts in images. It's that you should never make your source maps public. And why? The reason is simple. We already said that, right? This sources content, it contains the source code of your application. That means when you make this file public, you're basically making your source code public. That's something what you really don't want to do, right? And our approach to solve this issue was to hide source maps behind a firewall, basically. We have it uploaded in S3 bucket on AWS, and this bucket is only accessible through VPN. So if you are not connected to the VPN, you cannot really see the source code, and this is how we prevent leaking of our code. If you don't have VPN, don't worry, because like you can just spin up a local dev server, make it serve the file from your local drive, and it will work the same way. All right. So I started with the story, and I'll end with the story also. So in our case, when we had these performance issues, there were two important things which we decided to implement. First one was impersonation, and that really means that any of our clients, they can access us, they can allow us to access their instance. So first they grant us the access, and then any developer can log in into their instance and debug the code on their own machine. And this, with the combination of source maps which are available through the VPN, makes the developer experience or the debugging experience really seamless. So I just want to like end this with a recommendation that maybe try to take a look how your source maps are prepared, how your project is configured, so you are not surprised when such issue appears. Right, that's it. There are few references I think are worth checking out. The first one is a great article, The Anatomy of a Source Map. It describes how the mappings string works more in detail and so on. Of course, another source can be the specification of the source maps. And recently, like 1 year ago, what appeared on GitHub is a proposal for version 4, and specifically what it improves is like when you have a stack trace, names of methods are today, they are not readable, but the version 4 is trying to solve it. So thank you. Let's take a look at questions. Any deployed GS and JS code is public, and it's relatively easy to reverse engineer. Why is it important to hide source maps? You're right. The JS code is possible to reverse engineer, right? It's supposed to be executed by the browser, so even like the human being can read it. The source map is important to hide because it contains the original source code, which is really easy to read. And remember, when I said that during the transpilation, the code is modified, right? We could see it. We could see it in this example when from 1 plus 5, suddenly it becomes 6. So maybe like when I see as the reverse engineer, when I see the 6 number, it's not really the source, right? So the reason why we are supposed to hide source maps is just like security measure, I would say. So the production JavaScript bundle for Productboard contains links to source maps that is only accessible via VPN. Yes, that's correct. We can take a look. If I open the JavaScript file and I scroll down, there is like this comment at the end, which is pointing to the source map on the S3 bucket, which is protected. How do you impersonate a customer? Do you just log in into their account, or can you simulate their browser settings, time zone, and so on? That's a good question. So in our case, it's just like logging as the user. But it sounds like it's easy thing to do. But in reality, imagine for our case, our customer who had performance issues, they used a single sign-on using Google. Right. So actually getting into their instance, it was quite difficult task at that moment, because they had to create an account for us, and it was tedious, and they also have some security processes, right? So it was pretty difficult. So in our case, we just log into their account, and if that's not enough, we can always have a call with them and try to simulate their specific environment, including their browser. Oh, yeah.
Maybe the question wasn't about how to do it, but about security. Because we have to comply some security rules to not expose the client data.
Yes, that's right. So I think what Pavel mentioned is that the question was more about the security, and the answer to this is that we don't allow anybody to impersonate into another instance or to customer instance. We have like a process to have a background check, and they first have to approve it. So the customer has to specifically say, hey, I'm allowing you the access to my instance. So there is a process around it. It's not just that we can log into any customer's data, because they are private, of course.
Thanks for the talk. I have a question about the sentry, because you were showing the sentry, and I was wondering, how do you get the source map into the sentry if it's accessing that URL you were showing, or you need to put it there during like a build step?
Yes. So during our build process in the GitHub pipeline, we are uploading them to the Sentry. They have API which you can use to upload source maps. We actually had source maps in Sentry before we had them like available through the S3 bucket. Next question, how to deal with multiple tenants if we upload source maps to Sentry? Is it possible to upload multiple versions and deals with it? So by multiple tenants, do you also mean like multiple builds of the application? Because I would say that for multiple builds, you can, or let me put it this way. If usually you have one single build, which is shared for all your customers. If by any means you have multiple builds, this can happen, for example, if you have different language variants. There you can like have different source maps for each build. That's what I would expect.
We have one build, but we have
use the mic, please.
we have one build, but we have multiple versions in production. So we have e.g. One version on 2 tenants, and the second version on another tenants. So we uploaded the source maps of version AG 1 to Sentry, and then version AG 2 to Sentry, and we want to deal with to point to the right version in Sentry.
Yeah. So if you have multiple builds, usually each build has a different hash. Let me show you how it works in our case. So we have the main.js, and this hash is different for every build. So using this, you can pinpoint to the specific version. Pavel? Use the microphone.
Uploading the source put version hash to
Is it possible to pause a code execution using breakpoints in the original source mapped code for debugging? Yes, it is. It is. You can use it for debugging, but sometimes it behaves strange because sometimes the code is minified in a way that, for example, several lines are merged into a single one. So you can experience that when you do like step over, it will jump over multiple lines. And also you can experience that it's not possible to put a breakpoint to every line. And usually what I do is that I turn off the source maps when debugging using this toggle in settings. So then you see the original code, you can put there your breakpoints, then you can turn the source map back. If the source map is hidden behind VPN, does the request fail for people outside of the network? Or how does it comment with the link to a place work? Can you see some errors in the console? Yes, basically the request fails. But remember, it doesn't fail for every visitor. It only fails for people who open DevTools, which are not our real users. So yes, the request fails. So no more questions? All right, then I thank you for the attention.